All right, folks, we are live here. And I will tell you, the bottom line is sometimes you watch these things and you just have to think to yourself that this is nothing more than entertainment. And that's how the Big Ten looks at it. It's not athletic competition. This is entertainment. And, the bottom line is you take out KJ on literally 3 calls out of the 5 were phantom at best. And without Yakuchonis, Illinois loses by 2. That's a Michigan State team that we're going to see go into the NCAA and get their ass kicked. No big deal. It's what's going to happen. And everybody's going to wonder how that happened. And it's because they got wins like this that are a joke. And look, I go on this rant about once a year, but I grew up watching, when you see these old coaches talk about young players, you notice that when you listen to Illini guys, I'm old, but you've never heard me complain about the young people because the young people learn from the old people. And Tom Izzo learned from Bob Knight and Gene Katie that you scream and yell and you treat a referee like dirt because eventually you'll get your way. And so when Tom Izzo is mad because players try to leverage, they just watch you on the sideline, buddy. You argue every single play that's going on and then you get your own way. I feel sorry for Brad Underwood because he's actually he's kind of changed his act where he's not screaming and yelling at everything. But you see why Brad Underwood would decide, I guess I have to treat these refs like dirt, because you watch Izzo treat these people like subhumans the whole game, and then he gets every call he wants. It's really bizarre. I told a ref one time and I got teed up for telling him, I'm like, would you let somebody treat you like this at work? This other coach has screamed and yelled at you the whole game and you're giving his team calls. I got to be honest with you. The better team, and you guys have listened. This is like podcast number 450 something. I'll complain and whine about the refs, but this game, the best team didn't win. It wasn't even close. Ked?
Well, Mike, I'm going to be honest with you. And I don't want the Michigan State fans. You can tweet at me because I'm going to block it. Don't be in 12 years old. Don't come talk shit to me when the game's over. Everybody can see there are fans out there on Twitter right now who don't root for Illinois or Michigan. That was the biggest whole job. I am tired of Tom Izzo. This dude runs up and down the sidelines. He's on the court, and they don't say anything. They don't say anything to him. Every time they were called to win his way, I'm watching the game with people, and they're literally saying, watch him. The only time he didn't complain is that his team missed a free throw. And I feel bad for Brad because Brad has mellowed out. Some of the Illinois fans cried and complained about how rough he was with some of the players. So if you want to know why he's dialed it back, because some of the crying Illini fans complained about it. Because if it was me, I would be giving it right back to the officials. Tom Izzo punked the officials, and it worked. It really did. And to sit Kasparis, the fouls that he called, and honestly, not just Kasparis, there was about 4 or 5 calls that were late. Clark Kellogg eventually admitted it, and I'm sick of hearing announcers saying how good the crew is. No, they're not.
Well, that's it, Ked. See, Ked, nothing will change. And look, I get Clark Kellogg. I get exactly. He's making all this money, and you'd think he's also worth enough. He doesn't have to basically, toe the line like this. But he's worth all this money. He doesn't want to lose it. That's why you and I will never make money, because we'll actually say what we think. But the bottom line is until the announcers actually grab a ball sack and actually say something when it's happening, it's never going to change. And again, this was a joke. KJ, maybe 2 fouls were legitimate. The last one, he got beat and he just made a bad move. That was a foul. I think one other one was a foul. So when you take the arguably the second best player in the Big Ten and you let him play 9 minutes and you foul him out, I like I said, Izzo's what's wrong with America. he talks about moral values, but then when it's time to go out and he treats refs like they're dogs. I like I said, and I don't understand, Ked, referees like how can you be somebody with self-respect and get treated like that? And then I would be the point where I'm like, dude, if you don't shut up, I'm going to tee you up, or I'm going to call fouls that don't happen until you do shut up.
You know what? I'm so mad right now, and I'm trying to be professional. You know where I am right now, and I know these people are probably going to have to send me to the ER. To the ignorant people who are literally dumb and can't spell, who's never played a basketball before, ever coached a goddamn basketball game before, don't send me some stupid, cheesy pictures because somebody shot the same amount of free throws. Maybe Illinois should have shot less. That is a possibility. I don't want to see those stats. Those stats mean nothing to me. Illinois got hosed on tons of calls today. Again, not just Kedrick or Mike or Brad or Larry or Matt or Doug Bouchon or whoever, Derek Piper. We see this. We see the same thing. The difference with me, I'm gonna call a spade a spade. If Illinois got the benefit of the doubt, I'm gonna call it. Tom Izzo complained so much to where he got those calls, and their game plan was, which was smart, I give him credit, was to take KJ out. Some of the first foul he got, dog trash. The fourth one, I can't even believe they called, and it was late. We were going down the court, but you know why they got it? Because Tom Izzo complained and got a foul. It's sickening to me. It's not right, and it's not going to change. It's not going to. To me, the coaches that I know who have abused their power, Tom Izzo is one, and Mike Krzyzewski. I think Bill Self is one of the most respected coaches in the country. You don't hear that about him. You don't see that about him. You never do.
Well, look, this Michigan State team, Ked, they're just going to go to the NCAA and get their ass kicked again. Because if he can't get every call, this team, I'm sorry, they don't shoot well from outside. They're not particularly athletic. And the only thing that kept them in the game was keeping Illinois' best player off the court.
Like I tweeted out right now, they're playing 8-on-5, the officials and Tom Izzo. Okay? That's what happened. You're not going to win games like that. And I know Brad's going to go into the post game. He's going to be nice. He's going to be politically correct and say all the right things. But he is a competitor. He knows damn well he got hoes up there today at Michigan State. The officials didn't help them out. And High Knee needs to go back to hide somewhere else because I'm telling you, not a fan of his. And when Tom complains, they listen. The issue is this. How can you run on the court and run up and down the sidelines with that theatrical stuff and get away with it? So, well, I'm not mad. Yeah, yes, we are. And I should be. We should be.
And look, there's some dumb people who aren't very bright going, they can't handle the physicality. Illinois still, with all those things going on, still out-rebounded Michigan State. But again,
excuse me 1 second. Excuse me. Those people who make those comments, those people did not even finish kindergarten. Don't get yourself worked up over that, Mike. So I'm going to tell you right now, Illinois is not physical. You just said it. Rebounding is all effort. It wasn't the Michigan. How was Michigan State physical? That wasn't it. If anything, if you're going to say the foul, Illinois was the one who was aggressive. Don't let those comments don't put on the screen. They can go back to their preschool, kindergarten today, ride on a different bus. Learn the game before you're going to say something. Because
here's the interesting thing, Ked.
What?
Both Seth Davis came out and said Illinois is the best team in the Big Ten. Ant Wright was actually taking clips during the game of how bad the fouls were. And he's a Michigan man, and he was putting them out going.
And Michigan State fans think there's just Illinois complaining. And I'm going to tell you, Mike, Illinois is not afraid to play anybody. They're tough. Their non-conference schedule proves they're not afraid to play anybody. Play them on a neutral site or with some different officials who, if Tom Izzo is going to turn around and put his diaper on, and run up and down the court, he's going to get technical foul for it. I don't know.
And then the funny thing is, Brad Underwood gets the technical. That's the most.
I think it was one of his assistants. I think because I read that. I think Brad said that one's on you. It was I think it was Orlando. I'm not 100% sure because the video clip showed Orlando, but then maybe Tyler Underwood said something. But Brad pointed and made the comment that that's on you. Brad has been too nice, and I'll
be honest with you. Here's the thing, Ked, and this is the part that people don't really understand is individuals, human beings, repeat behavior that works for them.
Mhm.
And Izzo, for some reason, is allowed to scream and yell at these guys like they are dogs. And they actually give him the call. So if you're Tom Izzo, why wouldn't you keep doing it? Because you get rewarded for that. If every time I said the word Illini, $100 bills rained on me from heaven, I don't know that I would use another word. I'd just keep saying Illini and putting money in the bank. But if every time I said the word Illini, I got hit with a board, well, I don't think I'd be saying that word very often. And so Tom Izzo has been trained by these referees that I can treat you like crap, and you are going to reward me at some point. And again, my words to Tom Izzo are, next time some player you're mad because you can't coach them because they won't listen to you and they're not showing you respect, they probably learned it from watching you on the sidelines. Like I said, we saw it with Bob Knight for a generation, Gene Cady for a generation, and guys like Lou Henson, wouldn't argue that much. And I think when you take a look at it, there are guys like Jay Wright, there are guys like Bill Self, who they don't do it every moment of every game, and then there's guys like Izzo and Krzyzewski and guys like that and Bob Knight who do it every second. And for the life of me, I don't understand where the referees have. I mean, I don't know how you look at the mirror.
And then what they do, you turn it in. And then all they do, because if you remember, Illinois had a big giant down there named Kofi Coburn. Tom Izzo couldn't guard him either. He tried taking him out. If you remember that, they did it with Io, which is why I kind of backed off the Izzo train. And if you complain enough, it works. Now, I know there was a stretch where Brad Underwood would typically send videotapes in of foul play. They don't do anything. I wouldn't even send it in. What is the point? But if I had a chance to grade them, I would grade them, and they would have a lot of F minuses, and there's no such thing as that. So my thing is, they lost the game. Illinois put up a good fight, and that's what I said to begin with. But what's disheartening is when you put up a good fight and you know the game was somewhat kind of taken away from you, that stings. And even
you know what, though, you just gotta take that out on the next team. I mean, that's what Illinois has to do, because you can only control the controllables. Next up Thursday night is a tough Maryland team, and Illinois gets them at home, and they're going to have to go out there and take it from them. Now let's talk a little bit about what happened out on the court, besides the some of the crazy ass stuff. But Humrickhouse ended up with 6 points. He had 4 rebounds and 2 assists. Boswell was 13 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. You had Ivasic. He was at 13 points with 4 boards, 5 assists. Trey White was at 3 points and 4 rebounds. Obviously, Kasparis is at 3 points with 3 assists. That's pretty amazing in 9 minutes that he got that. Gibbs Lawhorn, 7 points, 4 boards. You had Will Riley at 19 points and 6 rebounds, 2 assists. Jake Davis with 3 points and a board, and Morez with 11 points and 6 boards. So you've got a team that played relatively well. I think a couple things, I guess, that stood out to me from a standpoint of where do you try to do things a little better is Boswell. There was a period of time where I think he felt he had to carry the team. I thought he forced a couple shots, but and had a couple bad turnovers. But again, he's going to have more turnovers when you don't have another ball handler, i.e. KJ, who's going to handle the ball. He's going to have the ball the whole time. There's going to be a few more turnovers, but there were a couple that hurt. Trey White was he kind of disappeared this game. And I'm not certain what was going on for him. I know but somehow Brad and the coaching staff have to get him back online, because if he's playing like he was, 2 weeks ago, Illinois wins this game going away, even with the foul trouble. I thought Morez played well. Obviously, he's got the opportunity to improve on the free throws, but still 5 of 8. He did a good job on. And I just like to see somehow I would like to see the team get Rickhouse a little bit more than just 3-point shots. I think the one thing I guess I think that the Illini could have done a little better was try to isolate the smaller guards and run some actions where you get the pick and rolls or where you get switches and then try to take advantage of that. And I was really hoping Trey White would have been able to do that in the second half.
Well, I'm not calmed down, but I'm going to take a deep breath. Looking at it objectively, Illinois lost to Michigan State playing 9-on-5 without their best player. So when you put it in perspective, if KJ plays, it's a different game. It is a different game, without a doubt, because people are going to get easy buckets. I thought Kylan Boswell, when they played USC, he was doing too much, and I thought today he did that today. I don't think he felt, because he's an older kid, which I understand. He's an older kid, and he wants to take the leadership. You know, that last shot, he should have shot that. I'm not saying it afterwards. I'm not saying afterwards. Yeah. It's to say that afterwards, and you can see Brad Underwood on the sideline making the comment he needs to shoot that because he should have. Because the worst thing you can do is what happened. It goes out of bounds, or they deflect the pass, and then they run the clock out. So, but I'm not. There was some great individual performance. You and I both talked about this, and so have Brad Sturdy, that we need the Will Riley back. Will Riley carried Illinois in the first half, so you really didn't miss KJ as much. Other people weren't as involved. And somehow, and I've said this, and I've talked to 2 or 3 of the parents on the team, if Beefsage needs to be effective, he has to score. And I said that before the game, before on the pregame. He has to be able to knock down shots and be effective, because it's a tough matchup. And the last comment was him, and I don't understand, as tall as he is, if he gets on a perimeter, he sticks his hand out but not up. He doesn't make people shoot over the top of him. He's 7'1". So there's no way, he should know that. And knows, because to make it tough, it was a stretch where they just kept the little cut. They would either back into you, to draw a foul, or they just got 5-foot shots. And that's great. But put your hand up, because he's tall enough. And so is Rickhouse. Brandon's been great. Trey White has been struggling since he's been back from that West Coast trip. And you're right, it's been different for him. And, his minutes were tough, and Drayvon Gibbs-Longhorn is another guy that I liked. He came off the bench, and he competed hard. Morez is tough, man. I'm telling you, he looked like a junior, senior out there to me today. Going 5 for 8 from the free throw line, I'm cool with that. I have no problem with that. But the one thing with Morez, man, that guy puts on his lunch pail and his hard hat, and he goes to work, Mike. And he did it against an older group and on the road. So it's a special group of freshmen. You bounce back, and the Illinois fans that are mad and upset, I know you're tweeting at me and calling me, just remember they have to come to Champaign. So all these loser people who are sending me this message after the fact that they beat Illinois at home, and they should have. I know they can't read very well, because I did say that they should win at home. They really should, because if this game was in Champaign, I would expect Illinois to have won the game.
Yeah, and as I look at it, again, the bottom line is Illinois, despite all the stuff that went on, had their shots to win, which is a testament to the team and testament to the coaching staff. And as I age, I would prefer to have a coach who doesn't spend the whole time screaming at the referees and doing that. And I never did that when I coached, because I always felt like if you were going to treat somebody with a lack of respect, you weren't going to get the calls But again, Izzo proves me wrong. And I got to wonder, again, let's go with one other thing. I actually think it would be interesting to see something along the lines of a Clark Kellogg. All these guys, obviously, they want to protect their income, and I get it. I would want to do that too, although at some point when I get enough zeros in the bank, I don't know that I care as much. But it would be nice if somebody would actually stand up to these coaches who behave this way. And, but instead it's going to be fawn all over because I want access to his team and I want to be able to interview him and yuck it up. But ultimately, like I said, a lot of these guys in the media want to have friends, in the industry. But it would be interesting if you would actually, you don't see people screaming like that in football. You might see the occasional whining, but you don't see this type of just all out and out stuff because they just don't allow it, and it doesn't really pay off.
No, it doesn't.
And ultimately, but as I look at this, what does coach do to get Trey White back on track? Because man, when he was adding those 12 to 22 points a game, that made Illinois even more of a threat and much harder to deal with. You got any ideas as to what's going on there, or what could be done to help him out?
First thing, I want to make a couple comments to Illinois' issue. To me, today as a team, 17 for 27. That's on them. That's not a Tom Izzo fault. That's not a Breslin Center fault.
Well, no, Breslin Center, let's give their fans credit, Ked. Yeah. They were making a lot of noise and making it hard on them.
Right. But good teams make free throws. And, I mean, you talk about Trey White, he's a 90% free throw shooter. He had fouled on the three-point shot and only made one of them. So that part, they have to look themselves in the mirror, because if you make those free throws, you win, even though you're playing this 9-5. And I just found out, I just got a word that Ibisevic has strep throat. He's on antibiotics and he's really sick. So don't know if that affected his play, but he was sick, and with strep throat, that's not good, because I hope the other teammates don't get it. But to answer your question with Trey White, get him out in the open courts. Get him a couple transition baskets, because he was settling, I thought, for the three today. But give Michigan State credit. They made it a little tough for him to get to the basket. But I'm getting him on transition. Like Coach Underwood obviously knows how to draw plays. They do that nice slip screen with the Ibisevic. Draw something up like that for Trey White. Get him an and one. Get him going again. That's what they're going to have. The free throws just won't be it, but they have to get him going, because they are a different team with him.
Yeah, I thought a couple things that were very encouraging, despite all the foul trouble that Illinois was in, which makes you play a little bit tentative. The thing I thought was really good was we ended up having Illinois ended up winning the rebound 41-40. So it was close, but nonetheless, with all the things going on, Illinois could have easily lost that a lot worse than they did. And then the other thing I thought was very interesting, Ked, was Illinois still took the number one team in the country, held them to 8 fast break points. And I thought that was something that Illinois can build on, because in fairness, I would say, Michigan State kind of earned most of the things if they weren't going to the free throw line for people phantom fouling. But Illinois forced them into offense as opposed to allowing fast breaks. And the Illini actually outscored Michigan State 14-8 in that.
Well, like I said to you, you're right. They had chances. And, I don't know. When you really go back and look at it, like I said, they missed 8 or 9, 10 free throws, whatever it was. No one's going to shoot 100%. Illinois is typically a free throw shooting team. I just wanted to win because they've lost games. They really have. And that would have been a good road win to have. There's going to be plenty of other opportunities for them to get other road wins. But like I said to you, Tom is great. He's been good. He's good for the Big Ten. But at some point in time, you know what? Somebody's got to say something. And other coaches aren't going to say anything either. They're going to be friends to each other's faces, but behind the scenes, I know what some of them think.
Yeah. Well, and again, I go back to it, it would be nice. And I'm not because there are games, not very often, but there are games that Illinois gets the benefit. And again, I would love it if somebody would just, would call it like it is when you see it getting out of hand in a situation like today. But that's just not something that I'm sure CBS wouldn't allow it. And I'm sure the Big Ten wouldn't hire somebody who's going to say their true opinion, when things get out of it, because they don't want somebody complaining. This all goes back to, and again, I want to, preface this. I don't necessarily, I blame the refs for allowing somebody to treat you so poorly and then you give them calls. I would never do that, which is probably why I would be, a guy like Izzo would say, get that guy fired, because the first time he says something to me like that, I just turn around and go like that. And I tell him, keep talking, bud. You'll be sitting out there, because nobody pays to watch the coach. They're paying to watch the kids play.
And every time he slide down the sidelines like Sammy Davis Jr., I would have teed him up, because that's what he does. Every single time. And then he gets a shot with the official, then he goes and talks to his team. It's old. I know he's about ready to retire. I can't wait. Because for the most part, if you look at the Big Ten, there's only Musselman's kind of like that, I think, and I don't remember who else. Fran gets a bad rap, but he only does it if there's a call that he's really adamant about. Because if you talk to some of his players, he's a nice guy. Tom is one of those old school guys, and it's fine. He wants to stay that way. I'm cool with that. But there also has to be consequences, because what you do by doing what they did today, you punish Illinois, a team that clearly is more talented than Michigan State, and I think they're a better team. You take back the mystery calls. You talk hand checking, and Tom's in their ear. Remember I told you at pregame, if there's a call made that you don't understand and Tom Izzo standing right next to the official, go back and watch the game. That happened 7 or 8 times. This is what I'm just telling people.
Well, we had at least 2 calls that were like 3 or 4 seconds between the play and the call. I mean, I think Fears had one that they waited to see if he missed it or not. And then that Aiken had twice that he basically fell down, and they called a foul for on the closest Illini to the guy who fell down. I'm not certain what you do in that situation as a player when a guy falls down and you're like, oh, and then you get the foul. And that happened twice with Aiken. Those are free throws.
When Aiken did that, and I think one of the calls went against Abisage or Merez. As a coach, when I walk over to the official and say, look, you're the baseline official. I get it. But if you didn't see anything because he fell, that doesn't give you the right to blow the whistle. Because the guy who's in the B position, I believe, it's A, B, and C position in basketball for you Michigan State fans who don't understand it, he should have been the one making the call. Because if they didn't raise their hand, it's a no call. If you can't see it, and they did fall to the floor a number of times just looking to get calls. I mean, and that's how you're going to officiate games. That's horrible. Either get position to make it, which I don't have a problem with, but you don't call things that you don't see because the fans start booing and you just fall over. That's not good basketball.
Yeah. Well, and again, I just think ultimately, Illinois now they've got something to be angry about. And now you can't be angry at losing a game. You can't let that – I mean, you can be angry about losing a game, but now it's time to try to take it out on the next team. Maryland's really good. So you're going to have to go out and play hard and try to get that taste out of your mouth. And I'll tell you, the first thing that I do if I'm Brad Underwood is I run a couple plays to open the game, get KJ sitting at about 6 points in the first two possessions, so that I can reestablish, that Yakuchonis is the guy. The other thing I try to do is I try to get something for Ivisic on the inside to get him started up well, and I try to get Trey White going. But ultimately, Illinois has a glide path now, or at least they've got a few games coming up where if they play to their abilities, which is not easy to do, but if they play to their abilities, they should be able to build a winning streak right now. And I think they have to be focused on that. And if you want to get mad, this is a perfect time. It's easy for a coach to do the whole it's us against the world, because kids that age will buy into it. And after a game like this, that's easy to kind of bring the team closer together. And maybe if there are any challenges where guys are figuring out how to get along, maybe this helps out, Ked. Maybe this is a positive in the long run.
There's not, to me, I know you've been nice and I respect you and you know that. There's no positive in that today. I thought that was horrible. And I just one time, I know the Illinois fans will donate $5 to help Brad Underwood pay for his fine for being critical. I know what he thought. I haven't seen him that adamant in a long time. And I'm not going to say names. I'm not going to say names. But I'm looking at my phone, and this is embarrassing. The amount of people. One of them is an NBA scout who flat out said that was a gift to Michigan State. So it's awful. And a couple of parents, and it's just, you know what, though? It's not going to change. So I should quit crying about it. And like you said, go compete, go get the next one, because I do think their schedule is favorable. Maybe they can go on a 10-game winning streak like Michigan State did because they haven't played anybody. So maybe Illinois will get that part of their schedule so they can go return the favor and do the same thing. And for years, and everybody who knows me personally, who knows me, not just tweeted me a few times, they know in the tournament, I'm a huge Big Ten fan. They know in football, when it's bowl season, I'm a huge Big Ten fan. Today, I'm done. I don't care what Michigan State, I don't even care if they get in the tournament. If they want to go on TV and say the SEC is better, I might retweet it. Just because I'm no longer going to support the officiating that they have. I'm no longer going to support, Tom Izzo crying up and down the sidelines and, me giving him credit because of what he does. And I'm done with that. That's bogus to me. I'm not a fan of that. You want to beat Illinois, beat them fair and square.
Well, and again, I look back and I don't know. It comes back to when you have over $1 billion, hire referees, put them in a better situation to succeed. And I got to be honest with you, whoever, I forget his name, whoever the Big Ten supervisors, their official supervisors should be fired. I mean, no offense, but you've allowed this garbage to go on so long. We're looking at the last title being 2000. And Ked, you and I are on the recruiting. We go to basketball tournaments, just so you folks know, if you're not familiar, IlliniGuys.com. We go, Ked, Brad, and I have a lot of years of basketball coaching experience. We go out onto the road and look at players and stuff. And I got to be honest, when we talk to some of the top players in the country, they don't want to go to the Big Ten. They don't want to go to a conference that they got to worry about getting their nose broke like Io did because you've got thugs in the game. They don't want to go to a conference that they see games like this. They're like, yeah, get me to the SEC, get me to the Big 12. And if you're somebody who tuned in, if you're a fan who tuned in because you wanted to see, how good is this Yakuchonis? Well, you tuned in, you didn't get a chance to see it. You got to see how a ref can run all high-steppy. You saw that, but I'm not certain you saw anything else. And unfortunately, that's a potential fan that you could have grabbed. I look at this as the Big Ten. They need to hire refs. They need to train them full time. They need to give them a schedule that they're not dead tired from. They need to, and they need to also make sure that they have a supervisor who could find his posterior with a flashlight and two hands, because the style of game that they do is horrible. And the other thing I would do, this is why you'll never see me in any big sport, but I would get to the point where, we're going to have about a half a season where most of the coaches will be sitting out because we're going to tee them up and we're going to let these guys play basketball, and we're not going to have all this screaming and yelling and crap like that. And it's again, and the other thing is I would also hire referees who have a little more self-respect than to be treated abusively and then reward your abuser down the stretch.
And then want to be your friend when the game starts, and you want to go out there and act like your best friends. And I know we're talking basketball, and I'm going to stay on topic, but a couple of years ago, Illinois played Michigan in Ann Arbor. Michigan was undefeated. Illinois was, I think they had 5 losses. And there was a horrible missed call by the official. And Brett Bielema complained about it, but guess what? Nothing happened. And I think Michigan got away with it because of who they were. And that's why I'm surprised to see it happen to Illinois in basketball because of it. I think the changing of the guard, and whether people like them or not, you know what, they're relevant. And I'm gonna continue to say that. The officiating is not going to change. I'm just in the tournament. I don't want to see one. I don't want to see a Big Ten guy involved. And there's a couple guys that I know personally at the AAU events we talked about earlier, going to some of these events and they're training other officials. I'm telling you, if they say something to me, I'm probably going to be kicked out of the gym because I'm sick of watching them just make phantom calls. Or if a coach, I've heard officials say, okay, I'll get you the next time. That's bullcrap. You only call what you see. That's it. If you don't see it, don't call it. Don't let the fans influence you. None of it. So I want Illinois to come back. I want them to compete. I want them to roll Maryland. I really do. I think it's important that they do that. I felt bad for KJ because he looked like he had that little extra step. And the thing about him, he puts the ball in places where other people can score. I think if Bisic he may have been more effective because he wasn't playing, because they do play well together. And I'll give Tom credit for this, Izzo. If his game plan was to get KJ out of the game and have his kids and flop, and it worked. But on the same time, right everywhere, I'm going to the press conference and I'm going to address that.
Well, like, look, here's a gentleman who thank you very much. You are involved in this podcast a lot, but this was, I don't know if it's orchestrated. I'll be honest with you. I don't put competence at the high level of what I see with officiating, but there were certainly some bad calls there, and who knows. But in the end, as bad as it got, Illinois still needs to make free throws and they need to make threes. And if you recall at the beginning of the game, I talked about the fact that KJ and Ivisic and Morez had to stay out of foul trouble, and KJ got in phantom fouls, so he was definitely in foul trouble. And I also said they'd have to out rebound the Michigan State Spartans, which they did. And I also said they needed to shoot more than 30, preferably more than 35% from the three, which they did not. So when you add the fouls and the did not, that makes it a difference. And then you threw in, you got to be better from the free throw line. And, if we see a similar, I'll be honest with you, I'm not really interested in seeing the opposite when they play in Champaign. I want to see a game where Fears and Akins and Kohler, all those guys, if Illinois is going to beat Michigan State, I want all the Michigan State guys on the court, so there's no excuses. And I'm not really interested in watching a game. I don't really care who the refs are. I'm there to watch the athletes play, not watch some old guy blow a whistle because Tom Izzo's crying, or Brad Underwood for that matter. So I'm hoping that when they play, we get to see a clean game, and we'll see who can win, and then hopefully they'll get to play a final time in the Big Ten tournament.
Well, I do care. I want the same thing. I want the same thing to them. I'm sorry, buddy. I want the same thing for them, and then I want Tom Izzo to let his lip drag on the hardwood court at State Farm Center because he didn't get a bunch of calls that didn't go his way, and then I want to see the officials swallow the whistle like they did and let KJ play. I do. I'm not giving them any benefit of the doubt. Mike, we've been in business for 4 years together. I don't have any respect for them. Football, basketball, the closest thing I can say what they're good at, and I do watch women's volleyball and baseball and softball. I watch all those sports. I'm a sports guy. The football and basketball, it needs to change. It definitely needs to change. And I'll tell you, anybody out there listening, you can take this segment out and you can ask Brett Bielema. That dude understands the rules better than anybody I've ever seen because he's good at it. He really is. And I know damn well he's turned the Big Ten in a couple times. And I know when those referees see they have Illinois on their schedule, they have to be intimidated because he calls them out for it. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're making that kind of money, then you damn well better do your job or you shouldn't be there. Mike, if you can't do your job, you should be replaced. If I can't do mine, I should be replaced. Don't let them continue to sit there and do that because you screw kids over. Morez Johnson is so frustrated, he don't even put his hands up anymore. He's just expecting to have horrible calls against him.
And, I think ultimately, now I do like this one. Roger, I'm going to pick on you for a second here, but we're just an average team without KJ. And, I think the interesting thing is take the best player off of every team in the NCAA, and what do you have? Except for, a couple teams, you got an average team. And so I think ultimately without KJ to be able to play Michigan State this close was good. And I think ultimately the bottom line is, and it just goes, like I said, it goes to how you ultimately want to be treated. But Izzo put hands on a referee, which should be an automatic technical. They didn't have any problem with that. He runs out of the coaching box the whole game. He gets out onto the actual court the whole game. There's a different set of rules, and if you're a Michigan State fan, I'm sure you love it because your coach gets to do all that stuff. And if I don't mind, the thing I get is I'll put on Twitter when I think Illinois gets away with stuff. I'll put that on there too. And I get Illinois fans screaming at me that, that I'm ridiculous. But if you think Izzo gets treated like everybody else, you're high or just mentally impaired.
I'm not looking for anybody to cheat. We just want to be right, Mike. That's the bottom line. Home or away, just to be fair and to be right. I don't want to see the officials take the game out of a team's hand. I don't want to see any of that. I just don't. If you, like I said to you, call what you see. You don't allow teams to sit there and coaches to yell and to take charge and make you feel like, oh my gosh, if I don't call it, he's going to get mad at me. Because like I said, I know last week when USC was in town, they heard enough of Mr. Musselman because I heard the official tell him that. Okay, once you do that, then call the technical foul. Silence them. Because today Illinois came on the bench, and it was tough. I mean, and I wonder what was said. I mean, I'm going to find out. I mean, I really am. I'm going to find out what was said because assistant coaches aren't supposed to get up and coach, and sometimes they allow it if you're constructing your team. They'll allow that, but something must have been said. They must have been, saying the worst on this podcast. You're favoring Michigan State, but in a different way.
Well, we'll find out on the message boards of IlliniGuys.com. A few things. First off, thanks for everybody who is on today. We really appreciate it. We'd ask you to subscribe to the IlliniGuys.com channel on YouTube. We would love that. If you can take a second and do that now, that would be awesome. And and then the other part is I would say that if, whenever you got our stuff, share it on social media. We really appreciate it. And of course, you can go to IlliniGuys.com where Ked will probably be able to get some pretty good documentation on what was said. It may not be something that we can put in a story, but certainly we can put it back in the message boards for those wanting to take a look at that. And please, go there and subscriber there is only 27 cents a day. So it is really, really good. You can get all this stuff and you can actually talk to Ked, Brad, Larry, Matt, myself. And that's always a huge positive if you want to make it more interactive versus just sitting there and listening to reading something and then not being able to interact or ask questions or follow-ups. One of the things that people are talking about is, does this hurt recruiting for the Big Ten? I'm not certain any one game does, but I do think that when you look at what's going on with recruiting and you go analyze over the last 15 years, the number of top 50 players who are going to the Big Ten, compare that to the SEC and the Big 12, that's an alarming trend because you're seeing more and more kids going to those teams. And Ked and I do this for a living, but you go down and you listen to these kids and they will tell you to your face that I don't like the style of ball in the Big Ten. And that's just a reality. So I think that hurts everybody in the Big Ten, not just Illinois, not just Michigan State, but building a team. I guess that means you're just going to have to get a lot more NIL dollars to be able to overcome that. So I guess if you want to spend more on NIL, keep this same supervisor of officials keeping up the WWE style play, which and actually, I've had kids tell me it's like the WWE up there. I'm not making that up. So that's something that you hear from players, and I don't ask them, do you want to go to the Big Ten because of the refereeing? I just ask you. I ask kids, particularly when I'm down here in Dallas, how do you feel about going up north? And I'm thinking that I'm asking a question about winter and snow, and they talk about how the game is refereed.
Well, Mike, You know what? We can't change that. The head of official has to change it. And you know what? And give these guys some time off. You know, you don't have to have the high knees guy running down the court for exercise. You know, it'd be good to have him and give him a couple of days off. Maybe they'd be much more effective. I don't know. Who knows? But right now it's not working. And again, so the people go and say that we're blaming the official. The Big Ten has not won a national basketball title since 2000. So keep that in mind. It's 2025. It's been 25 years since they won a national title. And you can't all say it's the bad teams, because there's been teams that's been to the Final Four, whether it was Michigan State's been there, Michigan's been there, Illinois has been there since then, Wisconsin's been there. They've had their chances. There's a reason that Purdue one time, there's a reason that they can't get over the hump. And if they're in the Final Four and championship game, it can't be because the teams are bad.
Yeah, I think one of the things that fans probably saw today, and I think they saw it from both teams. Both teams did a nice job of chasing shooters off the 3-point line and making tough shots from three. Illinois shot 20%. Michigan State shot 30%, although Michigan State only could get 10 shots off, partly because they don't have any really good 3-point shooters and partly because they couldn't get the shots. I thought we saw from a defensive standpoint that was good. I thought the rebounding battle was interesting, and you saw some offensive rebounds, from the Illini, which I think was really important. In the end, when you look at it, Illinois led in points off of turnovers. They also had, but in the second half, Michigan State really closed the gap on offensive rebounds. It was 15-13 overall for the game. Michigan closed that gap significantly. I think that made a little bit of made a difference. Points in the paint, they were about even, 44-40 in favor of Illinois. And fast break points, Illinois had a 14-8 advantage. So you saw quite a bit of statistical areas that Illinois led in. Probably the biggest areas that they did not lead in was 3-point percentage and free throw percentage. So ultimately, this team is going to have to get themselves better looks or knock down the looks they get from three. And at the free throw line, Illinois had been on a nice roll. And I think playing at Breslin's a great primer for what it's like to try to make free throws on the road, because it is not easy there.
No, it's not. It's not easy, but it's, you know what? It's another learning situation. The KJ's fifth foul, that was a foul. And it's tough because I don't like how the officials, even when Illinois has done it, when the guy goes to the basket, they can back into you and call a foul. I'm not a fan of that, but it happens, and that's the way they call it. I think that's Bush League. It's hard to play defense that way. His fifth foul, he earned, but the rest of them, to me, I'm done. Mike, thank you for having me.
Take care there, buddy. We will see you. So, folks, going on to this, I will tell you the interesting thing is now Illinois has got to find a way to get past this. So what I'm assuming Underwood's going to let people be pissed off and annoyed, maybe for the flight home. And then you got to start worrying about a Maryland team, because you do not want to show up on Thursday at Champaign against Maryland and not be prepared to play, because that is a recipe for a disaster. And that's the way it is. Hold on. There we are. And so that's ultimately where you want to go, is you have to find a way to not let this loss turn into two losses. And again, we're going to have people disagree. Certainly Michigan State fans will think that, KJ should have got a flagrant foul for almost touching somebody. But again, it is one of those times that Illinois has to find a way to stop the bleeding. And I think the greatest thing is you can walk away from this knowing that you didn't collapse without your best player on the court. And that's the things you have to take a look at and be a positive. And the other thing is Michigan State, this is not one of Tom Izzo's better teams, but he has coached them up to the point where they are definitely outperforming expectations. And the other thing that you will see, and this is just the way it's going to go with these conferences that have more members than they have games. So you're looking at the Big Ten with 18 teams, 20 conference games. So who you play twice and who you don't play, that type of thing can be a huge, huge thing. And Michigan State has a good schedule this year. So you have to decide to make the best of it. In football this year, Indiana had an excellent schedule, and they turned that into a CFP berth. Rutgers and Iowa also had excellent schedules. Iowa's offense and Rutgers' injuries prevented them from cashing in on it. Next year, Illinois has maybe not as good a schedule as what Indiana has, but Illinois football has an opportunity that with all these returning players, and if the team does well, they might be in a position to win 9, 10, or even 11 games next season. So you have to, when you get those schedules, you have to make the best of it because you can only play who's out there in front of you. So Michigan State has done a really good job of doing well against a schedule that has not been incredibly tough. But let's give Izzo credit. Most years he has a brutal preseason, and Brad Underwood did that this year, and you can see how this Illinois team has progressed faster than what most of us thought was possible for a team with 10 new players. So that tough schedule early on is incredibly important to these guys, and that's what makes it so that's what makes it such a challenge. So a couple things here. Yeah, and UCLA's got a lot of challenges. I don't recommend, if you're a coach, trying to blame everything on your players being delusional, because you're the one who recruited those delusional players. So in the end, that's where the buck stops. And again, I see so many of these older coaches who want to castigate and throw rocks at the younger generation. And it's like, if you're complaining about your roster and you recruited that, what are you teaching your players other than how to avoid accountability for your own actions? And when you see a coach who's screaming at the referees, treating them like dirt and expecting the call, you're teaching them that's how you treat other human beings. And those are lessons that hopefully they won't display when they go out on their regular job and get fired for doing it. So I see a lot of this craziness, and at some point I know it's all about entertainment, and I know it's about TV dollars, and maybe how we teach the guys is gone by the wayside. But it is kind of interesting to watch these coaches who've had the whole deck stacked in their favor in terms of, if you don't like a player, they can't, they have to sit out for a year before they can play somewhere else. If you don't like a player, there's nothing they can do about it. Well, now all of a sudden the players have NIL money. Boosters don't want that player to sit because they paid all this money to that kid. And the kid can say, to heck with you, I'm out of here. And that is frustrating for the coaches as well. And then I see this behavior. I don't feel too sorry for them. And that's why I think over the last couple of years, Underwood has really changed how he approaches players and how he approaches referees. And to be honest with you, I like it better. He's not ranting and raving like a crazy man on the sideline anymore, so that when he is really upset, it's in a game like this, you can go, wow, it must be bad because Brad's upset. To me, that's a much better way to handle it. But what do I know? I'm just a guy who's commenting on it. So, folks, let's talk one more time real quick. If you can like these when you see them on YouTube or when you see it on Twitter, that's great. If you can share this on your social media, we'd really appreciate it. And, of course, you can subscribe to the IlliniGuys.com YouTube channel. You can also subscribe to our Twitter page, @Mike Kegley. You can just punch that in, and you'll get all Illini and Big Ten stuff all the time. Plus, I do a lot of movies and things like that because I'm male. So it's usually action adventure movies. I don't do much, I don't talk much rom-coms. So you're even safe that way. But if you can follow us, that'd be great. IlliniGuys.com is our website, $99 a year. Price has not went up since we started 4 years ago. So we think that is fantastic. We think it gives an opportunity for a fair price. But let me tell you what you get, because you're like, well, why would I want to spend $99 a year? Well, you don't have to worry about the paywall. So if you've ever tried to read some of our articles and you get the first line and it says, you have to subscribe, well, you get every article. You also get all of our message boards, and that is the real key, because on the message boards is where we can talk about things that we can't publish because we don't have a couple sources. Look, we have Larry Smith, a guy who's a veteran CNN reporter and anchor. He's also been an anchor of multiple large television stations, currently down in Lexington, Kentucky. But he has been the anchor. He runs the news crews there. So we don't go with something unless it's got real ability to be fact checked and we have sources. So when I read other people in the marketplace saying they don't understand journalistic ethics, I have to laugh, because somebody who has a weird hairdo thinks they know more about journalism than Larry Smith. It's funny. But on the message boards, if we can't confirm something, but it's a rumor, we can put it out there and give you an idea of the context of what's going on behind the scenes. And then the cool thing is you can watch this podcast, you can read an article, and you can say, well, Mike or Brad or Ked or Larry, what the heck are they talking about? And you can actually go right to us and ask. We can talk in threads or by direct, DM, but I like doing it in the threads for everybody to read. And we can talk about the question you have. It's interactive. It's not just us pushing out content to you, you nodding when you read it and moving on. You get that follow-up. You get that deeper understanding. So that's there. It's a real opportunity. We would love to have you there. And we have thousands of Illini fans who talk on those message boards, and you would be shocked. You can build long-term relationships there. Larry, Brad, and I met on a message board like that and have had a friendship that spanned almost 20 years. So, and we now run a business together. So that's great. But we would love to have you there. And again, follow us on Twitter. You can follow the Illini Guys Twitter, Brad's, Ked's, mine. You'll get tons of stuff, get involved in a lot of conversations. And ultimately, we will cover the Big Ten and Illini sports about as good as you're going to get it covered. Unlike a lot of people, though, we'll actually tell you what we really think. And I know, like I said, Clark Kellogg's not going to ever come on our radio show because I was too mean. And you will get on to, the Big Ten supervisor won't come on because we actually say what we think. But ultimately, that's what people value. They want an honest opinion. They don't want something that's, been catered and refined for public consumption. So we give you the honest gut feeling. And occasionally we'll tell you, wow, upon further review, we were wrong, because you know what? Humans are wrong too. So please come on board. We would love to have you jump on. And of course, we also will be around for you to follow and talk to. In the end, folks, we really appreciate you guys being here. And we will be back with coverage on Thursday night. Until then, go Illini.